I think this shipping might work now. I had my doubts about it since season 2 came around because before the episode Sinsmith, these two never had any kind of other relationship besides the transactional one. Now, for a long time since I started watching this show, I see these two as nothing more than sex partners. I never saw these two have any kind of romantic tension or any kind of chemistry besides being star-crossed lovers. But even that seems a bit far-fetched to me. They know nothing about each other, they don't talk unless they're in the bedroom, and there's really no reason or explanation as to why these two will fall in love with each other. I wasn't sure if I wanted to ship them together. I seemed to go back and forth on this, and after a while, I decided I wanted them to be more than friends with benefits. But it doesn't seem like a possibility because of their poor lack of communication. But after watching Mastermind with Stolitz and Blitz doing that duet song about their feelings towards each other, and then the season finale confirms it with that kiss scene, this could indicate a fresh start for the two of them at their full moon and apology tour, and I will get to those episodes later. I know a lot of people talk about this ship all the time and that it's toxic and Blitz is being abusive towards Stolitz and vice versa, but I would like to go into more details about the shipping, and so for the sake of it, I decided to do this video to go back and re-watch some of the episodes with these two together and talk about their build-up relationship from beginning to end. I don't mean from the first episode of the first season, I mean the first time they met as children, which was the first episode of the second season, and then discuss about the build-up of their relationship from the first episode from the first season. So, let's get started. Season 2, Episode 1, The Circus, is the origin story of how Blitz and Stolitz first met, and how Blitz got his hands on the grimoire and why Stolitz was so fascinated with him. So, in the beginning, we see Stolitz as a young child as he is happy for his 10th birthday, where he becomes the age to achieve his grimoire and responsibility as the prince of the Archgoetia. He seems excited until he learned that he's engaged and expected to produce an heir. You know, the father could have waited until he was older to announce something like that. Stolitz gets upset, and to cheer him up, his father takes him to the circus, and there he sees Blitz for the first time, and he seems like he's developed his first crush and likes his bad jokes. Later on, after his father purchased Blitz for Stolitz to play with for the day, and the two went on a treasure hunt as Blitz lied and tricked Stolitz into stealing precious valuables from the castle. It's not entirely Blitz's fault. After all, his own father pressured him into stealing from the royal family to get more funds for their circus. But the two of them start to bond during the tree scene where they talk about their ideas for the future. And then, 25 years later, they see each other again, and Blitz is trying to break in to steal the book from Stolitz, gets caught. Stolitz brings him into the bedroom, believing that Blitz will ravish him to the imp's discomfort. Here is things get weird and uncomfortable. Blitz starts seducing Stolitz into getting the book from him, and Stolitz seems to get the wrong idea about what's going on. They both end up on the bed, and things start to get more awkward. Blitz ties him down on the bed, blindfolds him, grabbed the book and ready to take off with it, but then he felt pity for Stolitz and gave him a one-night stand. And this is how the relationship is formed, and oh boy, this episode had a lot to take in. So the whole reason Stolitz wants sexual desires from him was because Blitz gave him that petty night after being buzzed from drinking and horny. But I don't think Blitz realized that, or maybe he does, he just doesn't care. Because knowing Blitz, this isn't the first time he used seduction to get what he needs. So yeah, I can understand why people would blame Blitz for Stolitz's seduction behavior towards him. However, Stolitz never reads the sign of Blitz's discomfort, and I think Blitz should have told him about that night, but who knows what would happen if he did. Boy, that was a rocky start for our main duos. But do they get better as the show goes on? Well, yes and no. And this time I'll start off with the very first episode. Now here from the episode 1 Murder Family, we see Blitz running away from a crazy woman with a shotgun trying to kill him, and later he gets a call from Stolitz, and boy, he picked the worst time to call. Blitz even said it wasn't a good time in a whispery voice. But Stolitz doesn't seem to care about that, as he'd rather discuss the deal with Blitz about the grimoire and that he needs it back to do his duties. The whole conversation on the phone, Blitz is getting shot at, and somehow Stolitz doesn't hear that gunfire. Even if I was running my mouth, I would have stuttered and maybe even dropped the damn phone after hearing that gunshot. But Stolitz doesn't even flinch and won't shut up. Like, dude, do you not hear the gunshot? Blitz's stuttering, whispering, out-of-breath voice, and all you care about is him asking you, get your mind out of the gutter and focus on what's happening on the other side of the line. I really didn't want to yell like that, but Stolitz gets me under my skin this episode. So Blitz gets caught by the crazy housewife, and you can hear in the background with Stolitz and his 30 thoughts. Oh geez, what more can I say? Just another rocky start between the two. And I think it takes more time for them to get equally acquainted. If only Stolitz would stop and realize that Blitz is in trouble, he would bother to save him. And I know he's watching him through those bubbles. But he doesn't. Instead, he's making a negotiation with him about that 1-month deal. Again, he picks the worst time to make this deal. And I also remember Stolitz saying, when isn't it a bad time, Blitzy? Does that mean that Stolitz always calls at the worst possible time? Or is Blitz also too busy to answer his calls? Either way, this shows that they both had bad timing. Now, off to Lululand. Now, I gotta be honest, Blitz or IMP doesn't need to be in this episode. It should have just been Stolitz bonding with his daughter Octavia, who had a rough childhood due to her parents constantly fighting. Her mother Stella is always yelling at Stolitz for cheating on her, and rightfully so. Look, I know Stella is a bitch, but cheating is still cheating no matter the reason, right? I learned that Stella is the most hated character in the series who has wasted potential, and I might do a video on her character in the future, but we'll have to wait and see. After Stella stormed off, Stolitz approached his daughter with a morning greet, but she doesn't seem too happy, so Stolitz decided to cheer her up by taking her to Lululand. Now, like I said before in this episode, it should just have been about Stolitz bonding with his daughter, but taking her to her childhood theme park may not be the best idea, because we see throughout the episode Octavia's not thrilled to be there, and it doesn't help that her father keeps flirting with the imp that he cheated on her mother with. And again, Blitz and the others don't need to be there, as it's proven that Stolitz can protect his daughter and himself. The reason Blitz and M&M's are there in the first place is because Stolitz persuaded them with money to be their bodyguards, even though they're more trained to be assassins. He did that instead of hiring actual bodyguards because he'd rather feel safe with Blitz by his side, or just an excuse to bring him along so he can flirt with him. I mean, that's literally all he did throughout this entire episode. Even Blitz warned him not to be all flirty with him, but of course Stolitz doesn't listen. And Blitz didn't do his job right because once RoboFizz come into the picture, he abandoned his duty as bodyguard and goes after the thing, which leads to Stolitz finding his upset daughter and realizing why she's upset. They have a little chat, she forgives him, and in the end, the theme park was blown up thanks to Blitz. Boy, this episode was something else. But I will admit, I did like the foreshadowing to Blitz's past, and it makes me want to learn more about him. But still, this episode should have had more focus on Stolitz and Octavia having a father-daughter emotional bonding like they did back when Vio was a child. But instead, the writers have these two bonding, which isn't necessary at this point in the show. This episode could have been more of a father-daughter bonding episode, but instead they have Stolitz bring his impish little plaything along just because he can. And Blitz or Octavia are not having any of this. Now, the next episode I want to talk about is the Harness Moon Festival, which starts off with my favorite scene from the episode, and what I like about it is that they have an actual and decent conversation after what the f they did. But it is nice to see these two talk like normal, even though Stolitz still desires sexual attention from Blitz as they're talking about the Harness Moon Festival. But once at that festival, Stolitz doesn't hesitate to flirt with Blitz out in the open on stage in front of a crowd of people. He did it not once, but twice, disregarding Blitz's annoyance. Okay, Bird, you're free to talk sexy to your impish plaything in your private bedroom, but not in public. That is what you call embarrassment. Besides the first scene in this episode, there isn't much interaction between the two that's not sexually involved. But I do want to say that this scene is a start to build chemistry between the two, even though it's not a whole lot. But in the next episode, Truth Seekers, there's a few things I'd like to discuss. In this episode, there is a dream sequence of Blitz interacting with his past mistakes and drama. Here we see Stolitz on top of the golden staircase sitting on a throne. Now, the way I see it is that Blitz seems to already like Stolitz, but is afraid to get too close because of his royal status and power. Therefore, he imagined himself in chains under the control of the person that he admires. When you see Blitz pull up to Stolitz, you can see a slight blushing on his face, which indicates that he does does have feelings for Stolitz, but refuse to give in. Once Stolitz saved them, Blitz still doesn't give in and doesn't even thank him for it. Now, I can see a little bit of build-up as it tells me how one feels about the other, but Stolitz seems to only do the saving unless he gets something in return. Now, if he only did save Blitz because he actually likes him, he wouldn't ask for a reward in the end. Now it's time for Ozzy. I'm pretty sure every fan who watched the show knows what happened in this episode. This is where the dynamic of their relationship starts to take a turn, where one of them starts to realize their true feelings while the other is still unsure. I can say that Stolitz was the first to realize his feelings towards Blitz after seeing the M&Ms and how they share their love. Stolitz might have realized what him and Blitz have isn't romantic, but lustful. This is where he wanted to reach out to Blitz, but he pulls his hand away as he's the one who's unsure about his feelings towards Stolitz because of everything that happened before. Blitz still sees Stolitz as a spoiled prince who only wants one thing from him, and it just seems like they aren't getting anywhere at this point until we get to season 2. Okay, season 1 seemed to be a rocky start with their relationship, and I don't want to say season 2 is better, but there are some character developments. Since I already talked about the first episode of the second season, so I'll talk about the next episode, which is Seeing Stars. I will say that this episode has a lot of subplots that aren't necessary, and to be honest, this should have been better off with just Luna and Octavia. Heck, I think it would be better off as a short since the two interact with each other for 2 minutes of the episode. But anyways, in this episode, their dads ended up on a TV show, which has nothing to do with the plot of this episode, which is the search to find Octavia, who accidentally ported herself to LA to see a rare meteor shower that Stolitz promised to take her. There isn't much between the two here besides Stolitz laughing at Blitz's unfunny jokes and gets flustered at this image of him. Okay, I think Stolitz is just imagining this because this can't be real. I know, because if I compare this image with this image, I can get that this is in Stolitz's head. And I gotta be honest with you guys, I thought this scene was more disturbing than romantic. But it does show the expression from Stolitz and his reaction with Blitz, but still confusing his fantasy with reality. But in the next episode, Western Energy, there is something I want to address, and that is Blitz never thought Stolitz can get hurt. Blitz didn't take him seriously when he got kidnapped and had the M&Ms save him while he takes care of Luna. He must have thought that being immortal means they can't die, but they can still get injured, and Blitz had to learn that the hard way. But it also shows from his expression that he does care about Stolitz and he should visit him in the hospital. But he doesn't. But he does send a text message saying get well soon. And also, I want to talk about that text message in this episode. I want to discuss this now and then come back to it later because I think it's important. Now, the first text, Stolitz talks about what happened in Ozzy's, which is something I don't think they need to discuss through text because it's a big deal to the both of them. But here's kind of the other problem. Stolitz was the one who brought it up in the first place, but then dismisses it after Blitz asked him why they need to talk about it. Like, why would you bring it up in the first place if you think it's not going to be a big deal when it clearly is, and it doesn't sit well? And they never talk about it again and just dismisses it altogether. The next few texts is about the book, and here it seems like Stolitz will allow Blitz to keep the book for another month if he doesn't feel like coming over. Okay, Stolitz is being thoughtful for once, so that's growth right there. He even told Blitz that they can skip the bedroom and doesn't need it for another month, and instead of the arrangement, he just wants them to hang out. He even told him one time to drop off the book on the full moon and he'll give it back afterwards. Now that everything I addressed from the text will be brought up again in the next episode I will discuss, which is full moon. And boy, this is where the relationships start to get messy. I want to get straight to the point and say that Blitz and Stolitz both fucked up here. Blitz doesn't get the message that Stolitz wants to be more than friends, and Stolitz is not listening to what Blitz has to say. Yeah, Stolitz wants Blitz to make a choice, but at the same time, he practically chose for him. And Blitz got the wrong idea about what he just said and pretend to play along until he was stopped. Now, I want to mention the text from before because I believe it's related to the scene. Remember the time when Stolitz had Blitz keep the book with no sexual intertwine? I don't know how Blitz missed that, or he probably didn't think
about it. This clearly shows that he can be clueless when it comes to Stolitz and his feelings. But I do have to argue about this and say that Blitz is the type of person who will listen to those from indirect conversation. He listened to Stolitz and made his conclusion, and Stolitz was upset to his result. This is where Blitz started shouting and Stolitz is crying, and in a relationship by throwing Blitz out the door. So, should I feel sorry for Stolitz? No, not really. After all, Blitz had the right to be angry with him, because remember, Stolitz has been unfair with Blitz throughout the first season, and I never heard an apology from him. And speaking of apology, we are now going to be talking about Apology Tour. This episode is both good and bad for Blitz, because for one thing, he doesn't realize his mistake and doesn't apologize to Stolitz for breaking his heart. And again, I don't hear Stolitz apologizing to Blitz for all the crap he did in the past few months. But no, we're not talking about Stolitz and his problem in this episode, we're talking about Blitz and his problems. However, I'm not saying that Stolitz doesn't deserve an apology from Blitz for yelling at him and breaking his heart, but nothing else. Blitz wants things to go back to the way they were, but Stolitz wants nothing to do with him, and the two start to have an argument and it doesn't end well. Blitz goes on that stupid apology tours and he ends up at the anti-Blitzo party, where Stolitz sings about his broken heart, and this is when Blitz gets his reality check, and now he knows how Stolitz feels about it and he tries to apologize this time. Remember when I said this episode is both good and bad for Blitz? Well, this is the good part. He see how much he hurt the people that cared for him in the past, and this is good development to his character. So there are some build up to the shipping, but it only takes until the end of the season to get to that point. And now we got to Mastermind. Now I'm not sure how long it's been since Apology Tour, but according to Ghost Efforts, it's been a month since they last saw each other, so I'm gonna go with that. So 1 month later, Blitz was taken to trial because of the grimoire. But then Stolitz comes along and claims to be the mastermind. You know, Stolitz could have told him the truth about the book, but instead he made himself heroic. But I don't think it matters either way because Satan doesn't give a shit. But anyways, we get the short duet song of the two revealing their love for each other, which is a nice song, I'm not gonna lie, and Stolitz is willing to give his life for Blitz. But instead, he ends up living with Blitz after getting stripped from his power, status, wealth, and banned from his palace. This could be a fresh start for the two of them as well, with Blitz taking care of Stolitz. It's like the roles have been reversed, where Blitz had to rely on Stolitz for his business, and now Stolitz needs to rely on Blitz to, well, get around the city of imps. As you may know, Stolitz hardly took care of himself and used to his servants do all the heavy lifting, and he will learn from the season finale episode called Sinmas. It is more likely that these two will become more than friends, and it seems to start off that way with Blitz trying to cheer him up by taking him out and showing him around the area. I also like the fact that Stolitz gets a hard reality check, realizing that he lost everything because of his fantasy with him and Blitz, and the consequences of his action punched him square in the face. If Blitz wasn't there for him, Stolitz would have been completely lost. Stolitz was so used to his royal status and that everything was given to him on a silver platter. But now he'll have to work for the first time in his life as Blitz and IMP are willing to support him. The build-up of their relationship is solid in this one, with Blitz being more supportive and trustworthy towards Stolitz, and he starts to open up more towards him. They both know what they want, and I think it's best for the both of them to take things slow from here on out and see where they're gonna go from here. Personally, I think this is where the build-up of their relationship start to come into play and move forward, hopefully in season 3. Season 1 is just a transactional deal, and season 2 it starts to get a little bit more serious until the end, mostly on Stolitz's point of view, but not Blitz's. Yeah, there are some small hints here and there that Blitz does like Stolitz in a romantic way, but chose to dismiss those feelings because of past drama and failed relationship, and doesn't believe that anyone could love him. It wasn't until Apology Tour where his realization of how Stolitz feels about him, just like how Stolitz noticed his feelings in Sinmas, and they both have issues to work out. Now in conclusion, this shipping does seem to be problematic during their time together, but I think Blitz and Stolitz can start fresh again and take things slow into building up their relationship as a non-toxic, healthy couple. But what do you guys think? Please tell me in the comments below, and if you like this content and want to hear more, please subscribe and hit the notification button if you like this video, and I'll see y'all next time.